Alrighty, hello and welcome. This is Dan with Pat Podcast, episode 486. I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Matt, you're here. How you doing?
I am doing all right. Yeah.
Tim Spence is also here. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Jumping right into fun facts. Matt, take it away.
Jumping right into the fun facts. What?
Hell yeah, let's get it rolling.
So this week I actually do have a more cohesive fun fact than just a collection of fun facts. And this week's fun fact is on massive game worlds. So one of the biggest game worlds ever made is, of course, made by Bethesda, and that is with Elder Scrolls Daggerfall, which is the second Elder Scrolls game. Now, this game world came in at 209,331 square kilometers, which is the equivalent of 80,823 square miles. There are 15,000 towns, cities, villages, and dungeons to explore, basically points of interest. To put this into real-world perspective, the map is roughly the size of Great Britain. And it was made, of course, using procedural generation, which was quite an innovative process at the time. However, Bethesda actually used it earlier in the first Elder Scrolls game. So the title of, biggest game world doesn't go to either of these, but it used to be, and I'll reveal who has the biggest game world after. But it used to be quote unquote Daggerfall. But there's a bit of nuance here. That's because Elder Scrolls Arena has what's, I guess, considered in a lot of circles the second biggest, or some people consider it the fifth biggest, whatever. The reason is because it comes in at a larger number. So it comes in at approximately the size of Australia, which is, and this is the game world now, 9,656,064 kilometers squared. Now, the thing is that makes this a bit wishy-washy is that Arena achieved this vastness, especially way back in the day, using procedural generation, of course, but as the players traverse the continent, randomly generated terrain loads into the game simultaneously, which means that the generated space between the villages is theoretically infinite. So the number, where they choose this size of Australia, that seems to be the consensus of how big it can possibly get, but it's theoretically infinite. And the reason why it was like this is because fast travel was the intended character travel method of choice that the developers had chosen. Now, we talked about the first Elder Scrolls, which is Arena, the second Elder Scrolls, which is Daggerfall. Third one, you're thinking, it's got to be huge, right? Absolutely not. Only 16 square kilometers. The difference here, though, is it was not procedurally generated. It was handmade. So Morrowind went the more handmade route. And then if you watch the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, which I don't have the number for, but if you watch the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, the making of DVD, they talk about how they did some procedural generation, and then there's sort of handmade sections of the map all around. But of course, the game is not as big, not as big as Daggerfall, not as big as Arena. I'm pretty sure it's bigger than Morrowind, but it's certainly not as vast as these other games.
I guess this. Oh, sorry. Do you have more?
No, I do, but it's the end part. So go ahead.
Well, I was just I feel like you're kind of cheating if you have a procedurally generated endless map. The handcrafted one is more in line with what I would think of as the biggest game world.
I mean, it's the biggest handcrafted world, but it's not the biggest world. It's not cheating to say that it is just technically the largest world that's ever been made.
And I'm no game developer, but I would assume that most handcrafted worlds, they're not all handcrafted. It's I need some mountains here, and it will generate some mountains for you there. And then it's I need a river here. It's not like they're sculpting every centimeter of this map, right?
You mean in the handheld sense, in the handmade sense? You mean when they're making a game world?
Yeah, let's just choose a Far Cry game. They're not manually placing every single tree and every single mountain and every single river. You know what I mean? Doesn't the game engine it will generate a mountain range for you, and then you can go in and tweak that if you want, right?
I would say now, especially with AI tools, and then certainly if they were hey, this area that's 10 square miles is supposed to be a forest. There's not somebody in a game engine that's tree, now a different tree, now a different tree.
That would be insane, right?
Yeah, that would be too much.
So I think there is a lot that is
individual tree.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of automated stuff going on. So it is a bit of a gray area, I guess.
Well, there is also the idea that, something like Morrowind, for example, and a lot of other games obviously have these, which are large POIs. So like a large POI in Morrowind, that one that comes to mind is there's this one area that's you have to, in order to get to it, you go through the small town, and then you go up this sort of path, and it goes into sort of a, what I remember it as, and I mean, this is from memory, like I said, so it might be a little wrong, but it's like a circular mountain range. And the reason why I mention this is that obviously the area inside of that, like let's just say theoretically, there or hypothetically that Morrowind's landscape was procedurally generated. Somebody to some extent would have had to have made that circular feature, and then obviously everything inside of it, because the feature itself is the thing inside of it, but it's complemented by the terrain that's around it. Like you can't just have like a river that like runs into a town but then stops because a town spawned there. Right. We do see that a little bit with some procedurally generated games, like indie games, especially about 10 years ago. You would just see like it would just generate stuff. It'd be like river, and then it wouldn't generate river end. It would just generate like road. So there's just like this river just ending in the middle of nowhere. Now, I do have the biggest game world ever, but I actually have the top 5. Some of these are procedural. Some of these, most of these are going to be procedural. Anyway. Let's go through it. Minecraft. That's number 1. That's the biggest one. 1.5 billion square miles. So, obviously, Minecraft is a procedurally generated world, nearly infinite exploration. And I'm assuming that the reason why Arena gets kind of pinned at the 9.6 approximately 9.6 million kilometers squared is probably because someone's probably looked at the code and realized like at some point it's going to start generating like gobbledygook and it's not going to generate anymore. Because I know that Minecraft, at least years ago when I played it, there was like that area where if you just kept going one direction for God knows how many hours, it eventually would just start generating like nonsense. Stuff that's like nonsensical.
I remember that. Holy crap.
So I assume that happens, again, I'm not a game dev, I assume that happens to all these procedurally generated games eventually.
You know what this sounds like, though? It sounds like they need to develop laws of physics, right? Like in our own universe, you have all these particles that make up every single item in our universe.
Right.
But they're governed by the same laws, right? So you're not going to get some weird thing happening. Everything's going to follow some pattern, Like they say, if our universe is truly infinite and you go far enough out, things will start repeating. You will eventually find another Earth if the universe is infinite and has an infinite amount of particles.
Oh, man.
You'll find the same thing again, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a finite way to combine those particles, but an infinite amount of them and an infinite amount of opportunities for them to be combined. So you'll get repeating patterns.
That would be super crazy to show up and it's like, is this Toronto? Like what the hell?
It's Toronto, but it's slightly different.
Yeah.
Slightly different, and I would see myself and just get scared. It wouldn't be good.
2 CN towers.
CN tie, actually.
CN ties. Yeah.
There's now the second biggest game world is one we already mentioned, Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. And I know that the arena thing is like, hey, you said that was bigger. I'll get to that in a second. So Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, its game world is approximately 62,000 miles, making it one of the largest static game worlds ever created.
Static game worlds. That's
correct. Number 3 here is Guild Wars Nightfall. This is something I really did not expect.
Wow.
This game features a map around the size of 15,000 square miles. And another one that I really didn't expect, Fuel. The open world racing game Fuel has a game world that spans 5,560 square miles.
Yeah, I remember there was an Achievement Hunter video on them driving from one corner of the Fuel map to the other corner. And it was basically like it took them 2 hours real time.
Holy.
I think around that. And they just basically chatted the whole time about just random stuff.
Because I know that you could do like a long haul in the crew. Obviously, you can go like across America, but I don't know how big the crew is. Like, I feel like the crew ain't that big. And finally, here, number 5, and this is where it gets wishy-washy, right? The Elder Scrolls Arena, and it's just because like it's normally kind of cited at being around like 9, or in what I found was 9.6 approximately. 9.6 million square kilometers. However, because it's like procedurally generating and it's theoretically infinite while you're actually in the game, it gets a little wishy-washy. So it's almost like it's number 5, but it's also an honorable mention, that type of thing.
Why did they feel the need to do that for that game at that time and with the tech they had back then? Like, why was that the choice they made?
So, I mean, I assume it's the same with Arena, but I watched a little documentary on Daggerfall. And the reason why Daggerfall is so big is because they wanted it to really be like D&D, where there was, virtually endless possibilities and endless things to do, just like there is in D&D, because you can kind of like make things up in D&D, right? You can suddenly be like, I cut my finger off, suddenly in the middle of, I cut my fingers off and then I ate them and now my ears are larger or something. Like you could just do some crazy shit and it just sort of happens in the game and there's roles and stuff affiliated with things like that. And so they were at that time really wanting to be like sort of the digital infinite game, like the digital infinite board tabletop game. And so that's where these came from. And then of course Morrowind starts getting into an age of like, okay, there's like sort of like a gamer culture now. It's different than, people have a game console, they pick it up, they play it for 20 minutes every now and then they put it down. It's like there are people that are like sitting there being dedicated to playing games. And so it's like, okay, if we hand make this, super detailed world for the time, things are going to be different, but obviously we can't make it, 9 million kilometers squared or even 80,000 square miles. So
I just thought about something. What if AI takes over dungeon master roles? What if you could produce? Because I was just thinking, like, is there a game, like a video game? Obviously, Baldur's Gate is like the Dragon or the not Dragon Age, Dungeons and Dragons video game. But is there a game where it's more like the game acts as the dungeon master, and then you play through?
What's it freaking called? There's some old, not super old, but some older RPG. But I think it's sort of not procedurally generated, but like the game does function like a dungeon master. I can't remember what it's called though.
But that would be interesting if an AI, bot of some sort was able to act like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the director in Left 4 Dead.
I was going to say, it's kind of like an early version, right? Where it reacts to how well you're playing and adjusts the game accordingly.
There's a really good, I think it's actually literally called the Director 2.0 in Left 4 Dead 2. I don't know if you remember this, Tim, but there's one level where you go across this bridge, and once you get across, there's a graveyard, and the graveyard is procedurally generated. If you're doing well, the director will make it like a maze and make it really difficult to get through. Meanwhile, there's been other times where I've come through, and there is like sort of a vast or like a decently large sort of cemetery, but the entrance and the exit are just like one path, like just a straight shot, little quick whoop, and then that's it. So like I really like that though. Like I really thought like, man, this is pretty, like this thing can be pretty devious. It could really fuck you around.
That's how you make a game replayable.
Yeah,
for sure.
Which is really unfortunate. I feel like the corruption cards, I think they were called, in Back 4 Blood didn't do it.
Yeah.
Just sort of like, oh, look, like now the things that are tall with big arms are actually not called this. They're called this, and they smash you, or now they do this. It's like, why are they all the same, like, form factor? Like, it's hard to identify, like, what they are, and, like, it just didn't feel good. And then also, it was sort of like, a lot of the corruption cards weren't obvious. Like, some of them were some zombies had glowing heads, or you shot them and they exploded. It's like, okay, that one's obvious. But other ones, it's like, oh, there's little armored spots. It's like, okay, like, I'll just shoot it more, I guess, because I have to.
All right. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say as a follow-up, like, it was nice that they changed the flow of that game, that you got all your cards right off the bat. Like, you just got your build right away, because it was really annoying to like take the time to unlock all the cards you needed to put a deck together to make like the build you wanted to play. And then you had to wait sometimes until like the third round to have enough cards that your like build is online like that. I think that's what like really killed that game concept. So it's cool that they changed it, that you just get all your cards right away. So you have your build. Then you kind of have to like make the game a little harder to compensate, right? So
would it have been better without cards at all?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yes, it would have.
I think it actually sort of leaned on the special infected too much. I feel like Left 4 Dead was cool because like I know the hordes in like World War Z are much more vast, but the hordes for Left 4 Dead's day were like really revolutionary, and it was scary as fuck. Like you'd be like, oh my god, there's a horde, where is it? And they'd all spawn in one closet or something. They'd all be bashing the door, they get through, and then there's like 100 zombies, running at you, and it's just like, holy fuck, it's like, what do we do, And then there's like one hunter in the back, and you're worried about that. But in Back 4 Blood, it'll be like 10 zombies charge you, and then it's like two of these big guys with arms, two boomer like things. It's just like, okay.
All right, well, thank you, Matt. That was fascinating. I wonder when those static ones are going to be beaten, because obviously it would be easy to beat any like with another procedurally generated one, like space game, No Man's Sky, like that he claims he built a universe. Is that bigger? Do you have to add up all the land masses of every planet?
That's a fair
Does that
question.
give you a bigger thing? I don't know how you do that, but
That was mentioned, not No Man's Sky, but Starfield was actually mentioned in my research. And it was one of the things that was a sort of a caveat, I guess, for a lot of people's consideration, is that Daggerfall Arena and everything, even though there is, sort of that wishy-washiness with Arena, it's a landmass, it's a continual landmass, whereas this is like go to a planet, it generates a cell. Go to another planet, it generates a cell. And it generates multiple cells too. Like you have to like explore in sections across the planet. And so it's very possible that the square kilometers totaled, which I didn't look it up, but the square kilometers total of all 1,000 planets or whatever it is would add up to more, but it's not a continual landmass. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Matt. Let's hop into the news for the week. Not a terrible amount. I think we're kind of getting into game announcement season very shortly, with June just around the corner. Got Summer Game Fest, got IGN Live, got a couple other things. Xbox has, I think, something coming up. So not a terrible amount of news just yet. But this one piece here, Neil Druckmann says Naughty Dog's next game could, quote, redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming. This comes to us from IGN. In an interview with Naughty Dog and PlayStation owner Sony, Druckmann was asked to share his personal vision or dream project that he hopes to see realized in the future. Having held co-directing and lead writing roles for both The Last of Us and Uncharted franchises, Druckmann says he's worked on several dream projects already, but is still looking forward to the next one. Quote, I am currently excited about a new one, which is perhaps the most thrilling yet. Druckmann said, nothing is known about Naughty Dog's next game externally, but the studio confirmed in March 2023 it had decided on a project. Druckmann offered a brief tease of what the game looks to achieve. Quote, there is a growing appreciation for gaming that transcends all age groups, unlike when I was growing up. This shift is highlighted by our venture into television with The Last of Us, which I hoped would bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. The show's success has spotlighted gaming, illustrating the rich, immersive experiences it offers. This visibility excites me not only for our current project, but for the broader potential of gaming to captivate a global audience. I'm eager to see how this new game resonates, especially following the success of The Last of Us, as it could redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming. End quote. How do you guys feel about this? Is he just talking about games and like television and movies kind of mixing? Is that what he's talking about, redefining the perception of gaming?
I want to almost say it's like, I mean, just because it's so hot right now, AI a little bit.
Well, he did bring that up later too, but yeah, continue.
Okay, but yeah, like that's just kind of my thought, because one thing that, like, okay, so for example, there's a guy on the Bethesda team, BGS, and I think it was I want to say for Fallout 4. I don't remember. I watched a documentary on it. He was talking about how he would just write the lines that the NPCs would say when you walked by and stuff. And then of course, like, he's like, one of them always becomes a meme, becomes super famous. And he's like, because that happens, he, would try to write one that would become famous, and it would never be the one that became famous. It would be another one.
Yeah.
Famously, took an arrow in the knee or whatever, right? Yeah. He used to be an adventurer like you. And so, like, if we just think about like that job, that's, I would say, almost most definitely not his full-time job, right? Like, he said he was doing it on weekends and things like that, right? Like, he's not doing that on a full-time capacity. So there's not much thought being put into the random NPCs when you walk by. And one of the best parts, I think, of a Bethesda game is that you can basically pretty well, other than Starfield, I guess, talk to pretty well any NPC. And even though the conversation is shallow, it's still, I could stop and talk to people. Whereas in a lot of other RPGs, and they're not the only ones, but it does stand out. The Ubisoft RPGs, specifically the Assassin's Creed ones, the people just feel like props. Like, I feel like I'm the main character, which I am, but I'm the main character, and I'm just sort of like walking through this land, and everything around me is a prop. It doesn't really feel that like living and whatever. Whereas like in Elder Scrolls, like if I piss this person off in a quest or something, and I walk by them in the street, they're going to say something like, yeah, fuck you, or something, right? Or they're going to be like, oh, it's great to see you. And it's just a little touch, but it helps. Whereas in Ubisoft, it's like, there's 100 NPCs walking around the street. It's like, yeah, but what are they going to do? Well, they're going to scream or act a little weird when you get close to them. It's like, okay, like it's just a lot more shallow. So I feel like AI could really be a big part of that. And like maybe that's what he's getting at. Like maybe. I did want to say something though, is that these sort of like big sort of ambitions are cool and whatever. Like I'm not trying to knock them, but they come at a time in which games are like already blowing up in budget and blowing up in team size. And it's like, I understand that somebody has to be pushing the industry forward, trying new things, messing around with things, breaking things, especially, right? See what works, see what doesn't. But man, like, I feel like we already got too much on the plate. Like we got to organize what we got right now to an extent.
Well, I mean, I imagine in all creative fields, this kind of tends to happen. It ebbs and flows between time periods of high creativity and then time periods of contracting and playing it safe, right? And it almost feels like we're entering that era of playing it safe right now. The creativity era is over, and now we need to play it safe because the budgets have gotten too big. Games aren't making as much money as they want them to. It's not growing as fast as it was during COVID because that was a fluke. Yet they treated it like it was like the money was going to keep pouring in. But when I look at this line, when I first read it, redefine mainstream perception of gaming, I thought it was going to be some feature or something, some part of the game. But he's talking about mainstream perceptions of gaming. And if you think about that, that's kind of that games are still a toy, that games are meant for kids, the games are a waste of time. That's the mainstream perception of gaming. And so if he's talking about redefining that, and he also mentioned about games being for all ages, a game that's being for all ages, I don't even know what that could mean.
It's a good catch, honestly, because when you framed it like that, it made me think, oh, like maybe it is like going to be like some sort of marrying of television or whatever. But the only thing I can think of, and like this isn't a redefinition at all, is Quantum Break or even Defiance back in the day, where they have sort of the game and the show sort of married in some way.
I was into that too. Like I was trying to stay up on that and everything, and just fell off that hardcore.
No, I played that game quite a bit actually.
Well, I maybe it needs to be more like how Fallout is doing it, where the show is canon with the game series, rather than doing a adaptation like The Last of Us, or doing kind of what you were saying, where the game and show are in this weird, like that one affects the other. Like that's a bit kind of too hard to do, I think, but just having a project that is incorporated into the canon of the games, I think would make sense.
Well, I do know that like the perception is still kind of weird. Like you're right, the mainstream perception of games. Because like my dad will watch a movie, or he'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go watch Resident Evil or something," just something he saw on Netflix, right? Because he's one of those guys. He'll just find something on Netflix and play it, and then I'll be like, "Hey, like that's based on a video game." And he'll be like, "Ah," and if he hasn't watched it, he just like won't watch it now. He's like, it's a video game movie. Like I wouldn't get it, kind of thing. And he might not, like with Resident Evil, maybe not, and some other examples, I'm sure. Like if there was a Death Stranding game, hooey, but
or show,
excuse me, yeah, that'd be kind of like wooey, but like there is still that perception, even if it's just sort of in the background.
And it's not even just like a lot of people think it's with the older generations. It's not. There's a lot of people our age who still put games down. It's very bizarre, despite it, you kind of like everyone I know basically plays games, but maybe that's just kind of how I collected my friend group. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a biased perspective, but it's like it could be one of those things where it's become so mainstream now, and they were always of the camp that like all video games were a waste of time when they were younger, so they feel like even though it's really popular now, they still have to like stick to their guns, even if they don't necessarily agree with it anymore.
It always pissed me off too when it's like, oh, how can you play hours of a video game? It's like, well, no one cared about the whole binging era of Netflix.
That pisses me off.
Where you binged 5 hours of Breaking Bad. No one cared about that. No one said, oh, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life, you're but the video games that's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Like, why?
But there's like this thing with video games too, where I do know somebody. I'm not going to divulge names or anything, but I do know somebody that like before COVID used to always say like whenever someone was like, oh, like why didn't you pick up that Call of Duty or why didn't you pick up anything? They'd be like, because they grew up. And I'm like, okay, like what do you do in the evenings? Like you're not working. Like even if you're working 12s, like you're around for one extra day, then you usually have one extra day off. Or if you're, around, if you're only working eights, like if we're pulling out our dicks of how many hours we work, like if that's what we want to do, like, what do you do in the evenings? Well, I sit there and I watch TV for how many hours? Is it only 20 minutes? Cause you could be doing something else, it's just like that pisses me off. Another thing that pisses me off with it too, is when you'll be like, just in casual conversation, just sort of chatting, and you'll be like, hey man, like, why don't you try this? And then people will, I know that some people literally don't have time, but like some people will like frame it like you shouldn't be doing it either. Like, I don't have time for that stuff, man. And kind of like look down on you a little bit. It's like, oh, sorry. Yeah. Like, sorry. Do you want me to tell you how many hours I worked last week? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you want to start this? Like, do you want to let's go, man? Like, that really pisses me off.
But it's just funny how humans like value conventional, traditional things over new things. But video games, like the modern home video game console, is now like 40 years old. You would think that people would be used to it by now, but I don't know. Why did TV and radio take off in homes where like every home now has a TV? But why has game consoles not kind of done the same thing?
I wonder if it's because they were originally marketed to adults, whereas video games were originally marketed to kids, and so it just permanently has that reputation as being like a childlike thing.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. There's also a lot of culture for adults to be like super serious and grown up and mature all the time, and like you're not allowed to ever like have fun as an adult. Like, oh, there's too many many responsibilities as an adult, so you have to be serious all the time. And people like still haven't gotten out of that very archaic, like our grandparents' mindset, where it's like everything has to be, productivity all the time. And it's a sentiment, like you saying, like there are people that are our age that still think that video games are like stupid or a waste of time. And again, like our generation, there are people who believe that you have to be the hustle grind set all the time. You can't not be doing productive things to be making money passively all the time. And there are people that genuinely believe that. And I think a lot of people dunk on that mindset because it's stupid and it's not sustainable and it's not healthy for your brain. But people are just afraid to like let themselves relax. They think that like other people are going to judge them for taking time for themselves and stuff. And it's like, once you get beyond that mentality of like, it doesn't matter what other people think, like other people's perception of me doesn't affect my life unless I let it. Then, then things are fine. And you can play video games and it's cool, bro. Like you can play Cookie Clicker if you want to. The game itself doesn't matter. Just like let yourself have fun,
I do notice too that like with the grind set, like with people like if you're a person that likes that, like that's literally what you want to do, like
sure,
go like fucking have at her. Yeah. But like for me anyway, like I value being able to work fast. Like I figure out how to do something, then I'm like, okay, how do I do this fast now? And I don't mean rushing. I mean, how do I do it quickly? Because I'll notice that like I'll go and like do something during the day. Let's say that isn't work, then I'll go and do work, and I have as much work done as the other people, and they've been at the desk the whole time. And it's sort of like, yeah, but I've been grinding all day. It's like, yeah, but I've been grinding for 4 hours and I have the same amount of work done. So like, relax. Like, like I don't know whether it's like, I don't know if my way is healthy or whatever, because I feel like pretty tired after it. But like, even then it's just like, that's what I value doing. Like, I just would prefer to work fast.
So Matt, you did bring up AI a bit here too. So this kind of leads into our second quote from Neil Druckmann, who says AI will revolutionize how content is being created. Again, from IGN. His full quote is, we're seeing this exciting marriage of cutting edge technology with traditional storytelling that's pushing us into a future where enhanced fidelity isn't just about achieving realism, but about broadening the spectrum from highly stylized visuals to ultra realistic ones. This broadening of possibilities is fueled by increasingly accessible tools that allow even non-technical people to use their imagination and create worlds and narratives to their heart's content. Moreover, AI is really going to revolutionize how content is being created, although it does bring up some ethical issues we need to address.
And there goes Ryan entirely. I just told him his camera wasn't working, but he was like, we were still able to hear him, but he's gone entirely. Anyway, so I don't know exactly where he was. Here it is. Moreover, okay, here we go. I'll continue. Moreover, AI is really going to revolutionize how content is being created, although it does bring up some ethical issues that we need to address. With technologies like AI and the ability to do motion capture right from home, we're reducing both costs and technical hurdles, opening the door for us to make more adventurous projects and push the boundaries of storytelling in games. This evolution is truly empowering creators to bring their visions to life without the traditional obstacles. It's an interesting take because like I hear a lot of gloom and doom. I mean, I hear gloom and doom about everything though, but I'm sure we all do. But like this is an interesting take that he's like, yeah, like there's going to be some bumps in the road, effectively. But at the end of the day, like this is a tool that's really, really like it's really revolutionary. Like, is this another almost computer age coming in? And I'm sure, like I would love to do research into this. I'm sure that there were absolutely people that were like, computers are like ridiculous. Like we need, 8 people on typewriters doing this with real paper. Or like, oh my God, the Xerox came out, the copying machine. That's it. We don't need typists anymore. The Xerox is going to replace us all type thing. So like, it's cool seeing someone who's just like positive on this stuff because, Tim, I think you ran to the washroom, but, we were talking about how there was like guy at Bethesda. I'll just say it really, really brief because the listeners have already heard this. There's the guy at Bethesda that sort of just like in his off time, like in his weekends and stuff, was writing the throwaway text of the NPCs that you just like walk by.
Yeah.
And it's like, that would be really cool if that was in depth, but it doesn't make sense to dump money into that. Doesn't make sense to hire someone to do that. Doesn't make sense to do anything. You know what I mean? Because you already have like 100 people working on the game, 200 people working on the game. So AI is the place to do that. Hey, write this whole like story in the background and make it so that it's, a text and however the prompt is, and then make it so that they say bits and pieces of this to the characters they walk by or whatever the case may be, or when the character stops and talks to them. That's like a perfect example of like of being empowered by AI, and it's not taking away anyone's job because the person that's doing it, like I said, is doing it on the side on the weekend.
I mean, I agree to a point. At the same time, it's like the reason he was doing it on the side on the weekend is because it was like a passion project for him. And AI cannot have passion, right?
That's
like it's
true.
something that AI cannot replicate. I like that Druckmann touches on the fact that like there are obviously ethical concerns with AI that like as a creative himself, he would recognize that like you can't, like The Last of Us could not have been created by an AI in its current state. Like it just couldn't have. Because it's going to lack like the emotional depth of the story, it's going to lack the nuance, and AI is iterative, right? It cannot create anything new. It can only create based off of what already exists. So I like that he points out that like there's obviously ethical concerns with AI and like stealing other people's creations in order to just like make the same thing but worse a lot of the time. And yeah, like to have like you say, it's not all doom and gloom, right? Like it's a tool like anything else. It's not going to go away. Like there's no getting rid of AI. We just need to get it regulated, and that's totally fair. I think that there is reason to be enthusiastic about AI, like you say, for the purposes of either automating redundant tasks or just streamlining a workflow in a way for creatives who already want to be able to work on their creative projects to be able to do so easier and reduce tedium and stuff. So I don't think he's necessarily I don't think he's wrong. I think that there is potential for AI to reach that point and become a tool like anything else. That's the best case scenario. We just need to make sure that it's regulated in a way that helps bolster creatives rather than punishing them for sharing their work online and then having it stolen by AI.
Yeah, like I think training is actually a really good use case where someone who is not going to be able to, not capable, or just doesn't want to hire someone to train them and teach them something. Like one of the biggest problems, like I'm a web developer, but like this, I'm sure this is across a lot of different technical fields, is a lot of technical guides are talking to you as if, you're already 5 steps into the knowledge base. You're already 10 steps into the knowledge base. Mm-hmm. And I'm not faulting them for that because, obviously every single time someone talks about like a certain button on a DSLR, they can't go back to the beginning of like, put the battery in, the battery must be charged. Like it's, there's too many steps. But an AI is a fantastic mentor in that way, or like a little side helper where like an example is like, I'll get a snippet of code, which is just a little piece of code for the listener. And it'll say like, use this, it'll randomize a number or like whatever I'm trying to do. And I'm like, well, I have about 50 files in this project. So where the hell do I put this? If I Google that, I get like 8,000 different results. I don't know what the hell is going on. People have different use cases and it's a mess. I literally go to the AI and go, I have this snippet. I want it to randomize a number. I don't know where to put this. And it'll be like, well, try here. And I'll be like, well, I thought it should go here. Should it go there? And they're like, well, you could do that, but this way's more secure. And it's like, okay, like now I'm getting somewhere. Like now there's like more context there. And it wasn't something that I was going to hire someone to do, right? Like I wasn't going to hire anyone to do that. No, and as far as I know, no one's stuff in that particular case was stolen because I already had the snippet. But although that's another whole thing. If you generate the snippet, that's a whole other ethical thing, I suppose. But it's just like that's one use case where I find it to be most useful. And to bring it back to this is that I wouldn't be surprised if many people who are interested in making games who are, say, computer savvy, but not tech savvy, like they just use a computer to do stuff, send email and do that type of thing. If they're interested, they might be able to get into this now. They might be able to get into it and go, like, how do I do this? Like, how would I make a cowboy game? That simple of a question. I need a game engine, need this, need that, need this. Well, what's a game engine? And you can like really dig deep without having to sift through all the Google results, which is like that's like super empowering. And I think it would help a lot. Like I use it for teaching myself things a heck of a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good for like you say, adding that context to stuff or getting like breaking things down into simpler parts. Like there's that one website that's called, I think, like Goblin Tools or Goblin AI, something like that, where it's really good for people. I think originally it was designed as a tool for people with like executive dysfunction and like ADHD who have a really hard time starting tasks, to have a tool to help them break things down in a way that makes more sense. So it's like, oh, I need to, clean the house. And it's like, okay, well, what things in the house do you need to clean? Do you need to clean the kitchen? Do you need to clean the bathroom? Do you need to clean, do you need to do laundry? Do you need to fold the clothes, etc.? And it's like, okay, well, I want to clean the bathroom. And it's like, okay, so you've got the task, clean the bathroom. And then you can ask it to break it down into more tasks. So it's like, okay, wipe down the sink, spray and like clean the mirror, scrub the bathtub or the shower head. Sometimes you can even take the shower head off and you can put it into a bath of like water and vinegar to help like break down any like calcium on it and stuff like that. And you can just keep breaking things down and down and down and down to like smaller and smaller things. So you can take something that might seem like a big task and break it down into its component parts to make it more manageable. And that's something that AI is like obviously very helpful for doing, because it's something that like most people would think, oh yeah, obviously if you want to, climb a mountain, you don't start by climbing the mountain. You get the equipment, you get the training, you have somebody guide you, like you take the steps to climb a mountain. Obviously you break that down. But for people who don't have that like default in their brain or need help breaking tasks down, it's a very helpful tool for that.
Especially even if like you are capable of doing it the first time, you're not going to be capable of doing it because you don't know the overall like like what
procedure.
Am I doing, right? Yeah, you don't know the procedure. Yep. Or even like inquiring about something specific. Like, well, I know that like, my mom used to do the vinegar bath for the calcium. So like, I mean, I do it, but like, why is that? And it's like, it's because there's calcium. Yeah. It's like, well, why is there calcium? You can dig even there.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But to bring it back to sort of like the topic at hand, it's nice to see that he's thinking about it from a creative's perspective, because I think that's something that we do need more like advocating for in the like AI conversation when it comes to video games. Is it seems like the people who are against it are like the fans, and the people who are for it are like the corporate like executives that just want find tool to make us more money faster. So it's a step in the right direction for the conversation, where it's like, yeah, we can use it as a tool. We need to make sure that we're using it as a tool ethically as possible. Hopefully, ideally, people adopt as the norm. But that largely is going to come down to regulation, because as with any tool, it's going to be taken advantage of for ill gain until it's not allowed to do that. And even then, people are still going to figure out a way to do it just behind closed doors.
Man, the first thing I think of with ill game in games is, do you know those ads for mobile games where it shows a game that isn't even the mobile game?
Yeah.
I feel like, and this is just an assumption, that those are going to be easy as fuck to make now. Like even easier to make than they already are.
You know what's funny is I've seen videos on like TikTok of people being like, I saw this ad for this mobile game, and when I clicked it, that wasn't the real game. So like this game that they're showing doesn't exist. And I thought, that's a shame, because the game that doesn't exist actually looks fun. It looks more fun than the game that they were actually selling. So I made that game. And then they like go and they like literally program the game that they like saw and wanted to play. And it was popular, right? Because it's exactly that. Like you're showing one thing. It's it's a bait and switch, right? You show one thing to get people in, and then you sell another thing. And they were like, why didn't you just make the thing that you're showing? Because that would actually sell. And it did, because people were frustrated by the fact that it didn't exist. And so this guy made it exist, and they were like, damn, all right. And they supported that guy.
I remember there's like the one, and maybe it exists now, is there's the one where you're like one guy shooting, and it has like the multiple numbers or like additive
you go
numbers
left and right.
Stuff.
Yep.
And there's like those, and like there's a couple of them where I was like, I would try that, just like, for a bit. Yeah. And I click on it, and it's like, oh, this is a fucking base builder. This is like a traditional base builder, like less interactive than like Clash of Clans or something. Like, I'm out of here. I'm not gonna stick around for this.
And then you put people off. The only people that you're gonna like get with that is the people that like will just take whatever is like spoon fed to them.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the only way your game's gonna make money is if it's like designed in such a way that it's preys on whales. So it's like you're taking a lot of like gambles and assumptions with making this game. Like, why not just make something that's good and makes money?
There, man. I'll never like mentioning whales. I've talked to you, I believe, at length about my time with Mobile Strike. And like Mobile Strike is such a bizarre, or like I don't know if it even still exists, but what a game. Like so many people put so much money into it. I remember, this is people texting me in the game, so God knows how true this stuff is. But somebody was telling me that the top people in our server were spending like $6,000 a month to like keep up and stuff like that. And I remember there were like rules put in place where it was like, hey, like, you can't go gather food today because like this other faction who's bigger than us said you can't do that on the server today and things like that. And it's like, holy fuck. Like, it's just like, I thought it was cool. Like, I still think it's cool. I also think it's ridiculous, but I think it's cool that there's like this basically like a political economic situation happening in my pocket. And it's just, at all times, like, and like serious money too. Because if that $6,000 a month is real, how many servers were there? How many people were doing that? How many people were just spending a little less than that? Right? Like, how many people were spending $4,000 or $5,000 or something?
Oh yeah,
$2,000.
Cheeky little casual $4,000. Yeah,
just a quick 4 Gs every month. So $48,000 a year.
Must be nice.
No, it must not be nice. It must be freaking whack. But I mean, if you want
to be able to spend $4,000 on a mobile game, I wish.
Really, yeah.
To be able to justify that,
I like if that's what you want to do and you have the money, then go for it. But I'm not going to be there with you. But yeah, no, I don't know. Mobile Strike was just crazy. Like, people were talking in hushed tones about certain factions and certain people and stuff, and like you'd bring it up and be like, "Yo, man, like we can't talk about it here." And it's like, "Oh, Jesus!" Like, okay. And it's like, because if they get caught, they're gonna get destroyed. Like,
didn't realize we're doing a backrooms deal here. Like, geez.
There was a guy who, so like you could buy shields, and I distinctly remember the situation where you could buy shields and they were for a variable amount of time. And there was a rule in our guild that you had to have a shield every weekend for the 2 days. And I said, hey, like, sorry guys, like I ran out of free ones and I'm not going to be like paying for these shields. And the one guy's like, oh, okay, no worries. And he just gave me a shield every single week. And it was like, I want to say it was like $25, like the pack of them that he was buying. And he was just, here you go, like handing me shields to use.
It's like his investment in being able to play his game, right? It's like, all I have to do is make it so that this person can also use their shield, and then there we go, I can play.
Like, just crazy. I remember like they were talking a lot in the game, obviously. And then they were like, hey, like we should all go and get like an external chat app so we could, stay more in touch than the push notifications of the game, so that we could coordinate things and stuff like that. And actually, funny enough, I do know somebody whose girlfriend used to be the #1 player on a server, not in Mobile Strike, but in a similar game. And also like the #1 faction as well, #1 guild. And she used to have a 1 hour, I believe it was, meeting every day with her generals. Like a voice and video meeting of like, okay, we need to move in here. Like, these fucks are coming up our flank. Like, it was like a serious, like, you got to put those goddamn bastards in their place. They're coming up our left. And like, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Got to hold the front. And like, every day to keep it up. Like, and like, I mean, those things are probably not sustainable, but I still think it's cool that like there's, again, these like political economical situations happening that have absolutely no bearing on real life, just happening in people's pockets. Like, what a crazy crazy generation of games that came out. Like,
It just reminds me of like the MMOs, like the old MMO days of like spending real time after school, like logging on and then like hopping into like the practice like areas with my guild master, and he's like showing me like the proper rotation for my class at that level and like with the gear that I had and stuff. And just like when you're passionate about something, you know, you can just invest all your time, or like nowadays more so money, into just playing a game, you know, and like figuring out the meta and all that stuff.
Pretty fun. I mean, I wasn't as extreme, certainly, but I definitely got into Pokemon Go. Knew the meta, knew where to go, knew all the best places to do things, knew how the raids worked. Was in like a bunch of like groups. I got into like a secret group too. I was in like a secret group where these people didn't want to play with these other people, but like they would do this area of the town that was like really useful. So like had a lot of gyms and stuff, and so like they let me in. And I remember one time I was like, "Oh hey guys, like there's a whatever, like a Rayquaza here or something," and they're like, "Who are you and who let you in?" And like someone like took me aside like in DMs and like was like, "I need to know who the hell you are. Like, are you from that other group?" And like I got like pulled aside and I was like, "Oh, this person added me." They're like, "Who added you? Like which one?" I was like, "I don't know, like Jerry," or I forget his name now. And they're like, "Which Jerry? Like Jerry M or Jerry B?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. So I had to like to just describe the situation in which I was invited. They're like, "Okay, it sounds legit, but we're going to keep an eye on you."
Like, how do you think I got in here anyway if it's an invite only group? Like, what?
Yeah. But they thought they had been infiltrated, and oh, man. It's crazy days. Political or Pokemon political economic situation. Pokelitical. That's pretty good.
There you go.
Pretty good. On to the next story here. PlayStation exec says AI is important to Gen Z and Gen Alpha gamers. I've never heard Gen Alpha before. Who want personalization across everything. This comes to us from IGN. In an interview with parent company Sony, head of PlayStation Productions and head of product at PlayStation Studios, Asad, I'm going to mess this up. Asad Qizilbash? I'm going to mess that up super bad. I do apologize. Asad Q, we're just going to say that, weighed in on the controversial topic of AI within video games. He noted its development would allow for more personalized experiences in games, which is of particular importance to Gen Z, those born from 1997 to 2011, and Gen Alpha, those born from 2010 through 2024. He said, quote, "Advancements in AI will create more personalized experiences and meaningful stories for consumers. For instance, non-player characters in games could interact with players based on their actions, making it feel more personal. This is important for the younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha audiences, who are the first generations that grew up digitally and are looking for personalization across everything, as well as looking for experiences to have more meaning." This is super fucking interesting. And the reason why I think this is super fucking interesting is that I never really thought of this is like, if you grow up in the digital age now, a lot of the usernames are taken, a lot of the company names are taken, like a lot of the like URLs are taken. There's still a lot around, like we're not quite out of stuff yet, but we're like a lot of stuff is taken. And so when you find your brand, you're probably obsessed with the personalization because there's so many people out there that just have like a generic profile. I bet you that's like a big thing in the younger generations. It would not be surprised at all. Now personalization, I guess, is interesting. Like I don't really know what you would do. Like, you know how there's like those mods for Skyrim, and I know we're talking about an old game now, but you know, like there's mods for Skyrim where you can bring like ChatGPT effectively in as the NPCs, and the NPCs will like, you know, chat with everyone. There's that clip of that one NPC that just hates the player for no reason. It just like constantly tells him off, walks away. And stuff. Like, I'm wondering, is that what they're talking about, where they want it to be personalized beyond like, oh, there's 5 choices, you know, in this game, there's 5 endings. In this game, there's 5 ways to do this quest. And your reward is, you know, one of 5 swords that are all different colors. Like, do they want, no, I want like a rainbow sword, or I want like a different color, or like whatever. Is that what, like, was that what they're talking about? Like, AI could generate that. AI could make, like, if you kept like talking to an NPC on the street or something in Skyrim, that NPC is going to be different than my NPC of the same name and appearance in the, you know, in my game. Is that kind of where they're grasping for?
I don't know. It's like, again, if we're going absolutely like pie in the sky, like most ethical outcome kind of thing, like, yeah, I think that can be used to be a really cool concept. The only problem that I come across with like voicing characters for that kind of thing is like, what voice do you use? Like, do you get someone who is like a voice actor who signs off and saying like, yes, I'm totally cool with an AI chatbot using all of the lines I've ever recorded to train like a model off of that. So it sounds like me. So you can make that bot in my voice say anything, because like that's something that you would need to get someone to sign off on. Because if somebody takes that language model and they're like, yeah, like, oh, it's just for the Skyrim mod, so an NPC like will, you know, have generated and like interactive stuff to react to whatever the player does. Like, it's innocent in that scenario, but if someone else takes it and then starts putting it on some like extremist, you know, YouTube channel, and they get this person to be saying whatever, and then are people going to go back to this person and be like, you said this and you said that, and they're just like, well, no, I didn't. Like, that's an AI model of my voice saying all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you prove in a digital format that that's not you, you know? Like, then it can just become a big problem for whoever's voice it is.
Especially short form things too, because like, how long are we even looking at it? Like, even if the AI, let's say they do a deepfake or something and the deepfake isn't that good. I mean, if I'm looking at it for 20 seconds, I'm not going to notice as many blemishes. But if I'm watching something for an hour, I might be like, hang on, why is that guy's cheeks moving weird? Right? Why is his mouth not like synced up? I thought he was saying this, and then the sort of facade breaks. But if I'm watching it for 20 seconds and not really paying attention, it's like, that was that guy, of course, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A little scary. A little bit scary.
Like, those are the concerns that arise, right? And like, again, if there's regulation, and then if there are like, you know, contracts that are signed, like, it becomes a problem if that person says like, yes, for me, it is a problem. If they don't mind, then it's not a problem, right? It's always going to be up to the individual, but it should be up to that individual to make that decision for themselves or not.
It feels like, and I think this issue that I'm about to bring up is a lot simpler, but this feels like the days of YouTube where people were like, can I upload music? Can I upload 10 seconds of it? Like, there was still a lot of question around it. And then YouTube kind of took control of that and said, okay, like, here's a library of sort of stock sounds that are open source or that you're allowed to use. And then there's other libraries, of course, around, but YouTube kind of took stock and was like, okay, like, here's an in-house solution, because this is just, you know, an issue where someone's like, yeah, but I'm advertising for them, and it's just too much. Like, it's too many people, too many different opinions, lots of videos, too much footage, too much sound uploaded to YouTube. So it just became like, okay, we're just going to solve this problem and then have, you know, some third parties help as well. I kind of feel like it's this again. Like, this is probably more complicated, but it just feels like this era again.
I mean, there's always going to be, like, anytime some new thing comes along, there are going to be those who are looking to exploit it for their own gain and, like, you know, forget everyone else along the way. That's just how the world is.
Yeah, like, classic. You know, always.
Yeah.
There's always someone that's one thing that sucks. I remember I watched a video recently of what operating system? Windows XP. Someone like booted up Windows XP, and I read the article. Sorry, I didn't watch the video yet. I read the article, and it was like, if you connect Windows XP to the internet and don't even browse to the internet within like a certain amount of time, which isn't that long, like under an hour, it becomes riddled with just like Trojans and worms and viruses and shit. And I was like, who the fuck has a bot that's just like, I don't know, like, just off the top of my head, because I've never engineered anything like this, but like, you're scanning for IP addresses and then checking if it's a Windows XP machine and then breaking in to like install a worm on like someone's Windows XP machine. What the fuck are you, like, why? Like, Windows XP? Of all the things you're trying to break into, Windows XP.
It's just the hustle grind set, bro.
No, it's not. Like, oh my god, I'd love to like see an ethical hacker explain it. I'm sure maybe even that's the video. I haven't gotten to it yet, but like, what the hell's going on? It's chaos.
Always was.
It's been chaos since the beginning. The internet never changes.
That's right.
And speaking of the internet, we have one more story from the internet. An AI story.
Whoa.
No, I'm just
God.
No, I'm just joking.
You've been outsourced already.
No, I'm just joking. Joking. Comes to us from IGN here. Atari acquires Intellivision. This had me laughing a little bit. Atari acquires Intellivision brand, but leaves disastrous Amico console behind. Two classic game companies have united under one roof as Atari has acquired Intellivision Entertainment brand, though left its disastrous Amico console behind. That's because Atari hasn't acquired Intellivision Entertainment LLC itself, but instead just its branding and the rights to move more than 200 games from its portfolio. The remaining Intellivision Entertainment LLC will therefore rebrand to a different name entirely and continue to develop the Amico console. Though it will presumably no longer be called the Intellivision Amico, this retro-inspired console is allegedly still being developed, though hasn't received any positive updates in years. Is the Amico Intellivision the console that Tommy Tallarico was working on? Do you know of that? I feel like that might be. Do not quote me on that. I think that might be right. I learned that on the Vic's Basement podcast like years ago, like 2-3 years ago, probably. And I don't know if it's even true. I know he was working on a console. It had some sort of role there. I'd have to look that up. But I thought this story was funny because like Intellivision's fucking old. Like,
yeah.
You know, how much did they pay for this? Like, I'm maybe the numbers out there. We don't have that here, but I'm just curious. Like, what are the thoughts behind this? Like, who's like, man, we need this library, you know, enough to like buy it, leave their Amico behind. It's just, I don't know. I'm just kind of confused. I'm just kind of curious what the idea behind this was. Like this feels like a news article, short of the Amico and stuff. This feels like a news article that happened in like the 90s or like the 80s.
A long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like we went back to the newspaper archives and like found this, and then we're like, well, let's just print it.
This is relevant, yeah.
So
we got big plans in the works or something. I don't know.
Well, have you ever played any Intellivision games, Tim?
No, it's before my time. I didn't really have anybody around me that was older than me and was interested in video games, except for my brother, but he's only like 3 years older, and a lot of our interests that way were more like PC games.
Okay, because like I want to look this up right now. Okay, so oh no, I don't know if that's true. I just like typed in Tommy Tallarico Amico, and it just said, okay, I don't think that's right, but for some reason the text Tommy Tallarico's founder. So I don't know. Oh no. Tallarico stepped down from Intellivision in 2022 amid product delays and financial struggles that have apparently not deterred the company's plans to release the console. That comes to us from the Verbs. From the Verge.
The Sims Verbs in the City.
Verbs in the City, yeah. But like, when was the first Intellivision? Let's see. Intellivision.
Was it the 80s?
Release date. 1979.
79.
God, that's, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, North America 1979, and then all the way up to 83. And 83, it was released in Brazil, and there's other countries sprinkled in there. So yeah, there's quite a it's quite a gap in the that's quite a gap in age for us. I mean, I guess I have an Atari 2600. I've played that quite a few times actually. Kind of messed around with it. So
ET on it.
Played what?
ET.
I have. I have ET. I have ET on my shelf actually in display and in shame.
The display of shame.
So right beside, I have an empty spot right beside it, and that will be for the Intellivision Amico.
There you go. Yeah, complete the look. Man,
what a mess. I remember just Tommy Tallarico from like Reviews on the Run and Video Games Live. I did not realize that this had blown up so bad. But anyway, that's yesteryear's news in 2024. Apparently.
I really hope that they're actually like planning something big. That would be hilarious. Like there's just this huge like resurgence in old brands, because that's really what the industry needs, is like more competition, honestly. Fewer large companies, more smaller companies making weird moves. Well,
there was a resurgence of Intellivision, and it's called Intellivision Lives. It's a compilation of 60 Intellivision video games. That's from Wikipedia. And there's actually Intellivision Lives on the Xbox Marketplace. It is an original Xbox title.
I was gonna say, but are these new games, or are they like, no. Yeah, they're like old ones re-released, right? So
with 5.1 surround sound, fuck me. We get to hear those beeps and bops. Here's a list of some of the games, because some of the games, like, we're so early that we don't really have names. So we have things like Space Battle,
Yeah,
and
yep.
soccer.
I love how generic old video game names are. Just golf. What golf? Just golf.
Golf. Okay, here we go. A little bit of names. Buzz Bombers.
Oh, there you go.
B-17 Bomber, just the name of the plane.
Just the actual name of the model, yeah.
Spiker, and it's exclamation mark, and then subtitle, Super Pro Volleyball. Okay. Las Vegas Poker and Blackjack. Las Vegas Roulette. Night Stalker. Motocross. And Body Slam Super Pro Wrestling. There's more in here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing.
That's a good name. Body Slam Pro Wrestling. Just a move.
There's one here that's just called. There's Space Spartans, which gives me a good laugh. But
Space Spartans. There you go.
But there's one here that's just called Utopia. Like of what? Like of what? Like
Utopia 1981.
Yeah. Like what? Anyway, that's in television, and in television lives. All right, so I guess we're moving on to what we're playing now. Since there's only two of us,
Yeah.
Tim, you're up since I took over, I guess, as temporary host.
Yeah, that's right. Your interim temporary host, temporarily. Yeah, so I've been playing the Tomb Raider games. I think, as I said last week, I'm on to Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is really cool. Like, I don't have any complaints for like the gameplay wise, except for that I don't think it's a very good PC port, and the performance is pretty bad in like the majority of the game areas. I think I mentioned that before. But aside from that, I've actually taken I'm taking a break from that because the remake of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door came out on Thursday. And that's like in my top five favorite games of all time. The original one on the GameCube. So I've been playing that on stream, and it's just been a blast. Like, it's such a fun game, and it's been long enough since I played it last. Like, it's been enough years that I've kind of forgotten some parts of the game. And I've mostly just in like what the quips characters say and stuff like that. So I've been really enjoying not only seeing the game in a fully realized widescreen format, but also with higher resolution graphics and stuff. And then the quips and things the characters are saying and what's going on with the story, which I think a few minor things are kind of fixed or changed. Just for the sake of like modernizing gameplay, but also streamlining like dialogue from characters, because the original game obviously was in Japanese and then translated for an English audience. And there were a couple of parts where there was a character who, where people like, there was a muddy translation between the original Japanese to English. And it was implied in the Japanese dialogue that the character was a trans girl, and in the English translation, I don't think that they either understood that was what it was supposed to be, or they were trying to like change it for their own narrative or whatever, what they believed, and so they made it much more confusing. So there was a bunch of like back and forth online of people being like, oh, this is what they are supposed to be. And then other people saying, no, it's not, because if it was supposed to be that way, then it would have been that way in the English translation, and blah, blah, blah. Just a bunch of garbage. So in the remake, they have actually made it in no uncertain terms that this character just straight up says like that it's part of the story of like the second or third world or something. Because the character in question does become like a companion for Mario. So they are a character who you see a lot of in the game. And they straight up just say like, yeah, like, my siblings thought I was their brother, but I'm actually their sister. And it's just like, there's no confusing it now. And I gotta say, I'm surprised that Nintendo made that decision to clear that up, because it's something that kind of like, not only did they obviously had the choice to not do it, but B, it's very like progressive for Japan. So I was surprised that they did that, but that's cool. But yeah, I mean, overall for the game though, it's still really fun. If you're not familiar with Paper Mario, the first two games primarily, it's like a turn-based RPG where you and a character as you adventure through the world, and like you collect these other adventuring companions and stuff. And you all get your different moves and different upgrades and stuff like that. And there's like a badge system where you get new abilities by equipping badges, and then those give you extra like jump attacks, so they give you different hammer attacks. And then there's always some other like power currency thing that you can use, and that determines like special moves and stuff. It's just, as with most like main series Mario games, like they usually throw a lot of different game mechanics at you, kind of like all throughout the game. And for Paper Mario, it's mostly like the stories and the ways that you interact with the worlds are what's really cool about that game. And the first one's just kind of your bog standard, like it's a plains, hilly area and there's Koopas, and then you go to a castle and you fight a dragon. Like it's pretty straightforward. But there's little like cheeky kind of fourth wall breaks and stuff where like in the combat, it's like turn-based, like 2D plane kind of thing where you're on the left and they're on the right and you take turns to fight, but you're on a stage, like as if it's like a play. And sometimes during like whatever event of the fight, like the fight will spill out from the stage and now you're like in the seating area, and that's where you're fighting instead of on the stage and stuff. So there's lots of little like cheeky nods to things like that where they kind of break convention. There's one story element like way later in the game that's like a murder mystery on a train kind of thing, and you have to solve it, and the train doesn't stop until you figure out the mystery. And there's all these like cool different little story elements that it's fun to go back and play through again, because it's been long enough since I played it last, but I've definitely like remembered it well enough that I'm also kind of flying through it because I still remember the solutions to most of the puzzles and stuff.
Is this the game? I've never played this, so this might be a stupid question, but I remember back on like the Wii, I want to say there was like that Paper Mario where you could like flip. So there's like the traditional side scroller Mario, but you could like flip it so you're looking down range almost kind of thing.
Yeah, you tilt the axis like from 2D to 3D, or from like the X axis to the Z axis. That's Super Paper Mario. That's the game after this one. So This is the remake of the 1,000-Year Door on the GameCube.
Okay.
And yeah, it's fun. I haven't come across too many things that are like major changes, if they've made any. I don't know. Because like I said, it's been long enough since I played the last one. I don't really remember. But overall, like it's one of those situations where it's like it is basically like the definitive way to play the game now. Like I see a lot of people being like, "Oh, why would you ever buy like a Nintendo remake of a game? Because it's just the same thing, just with higher like resolution graphics and blah blah blah." And it's like, well, if you have a Switch and you don't have a GameCube anymore, like you would buy this game. Like if you wanted to play the original Paper Mario on the GameCube, but you don't have any other stuff, you have to buy the GameCube. You have to get the cables to connect to a composite connection to a TV, if your TV even has composite anymore. And if it don't, then you have to get an HDMI converter. And then you have to get the game itself, which goes for, I think, $200 on eBay. And then you have to get a controller. And it's like, should I do that? Or do I just go to the Nintendo eShop on the Switch and buy it for $80? Like, so...
Is that what you did? Because I know you were talking about potentially buying the cartridge, right? Like before you bought it.
Oh yeah, I bought it digitally. Yeah.
Okay.
That was just because I was like awake at midnight on Thursday morning, technically, and was like, oh, I should just see if I can like buy this now, and I could, so I did.
Okay.
Because I was going out the next morning, and I was like, well, I'll be going past the GameStop, so I can try there if I don't have it already, but. It just worked out that way.
I used to always want like the box of everything, but like, cause like, you know, the little cartridge boxes or the disc boxes don't take up much space, but man, do they take up some space when you've been doing that for about 20 years.
And man, does it become a pain in the ass when you have to move? That's what I learned after moving twice. Cause I was the same way. We actually talked about this on my stream recently. It was like, somebody asked, do you prefer to buy physical or digital? And I said, you know, about 10 years ago, I would have said physical all the way. I like to be able to like own my games, right? And like physically have them, and I like having the collection on the wall or whatever. But then, you know, 10 years down the line, I've moved twice since then, technically 3 times, I guess. I so appreciate digital for like certain games, unless there's one that I know I only want it for like a short period of time, and then I'm going to like either trade it in or like sell it or give it to another person, like a friend or whatever. Like the things you can only do with a physical, or at least much more easily do with a physical cartridge, then I'll go digital, because it just makes more sense for me. Like I usually will go back and like play a game more than once. It's pretty rare that I buy a game these days and I don't either like play the absolute crap out of it when I first get it, or end up going back later to play it multiple times.
I actually, well, I'll generally buy digital. I'll buy this if it's cheaper usually, or if I specifically want it. However, with Nintendo, I always buy physical because I'm always scared they're going to take down their damn eShop.
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
I'm, and it's just like, well, just buy it again. Like, nah, I think I'll just won't do that. Like, let's use my old console and put a cartridge in.
I do wonder if that's going to be the case, like post Switch,
Yeah.
like they did it with like the Wii U and everything, but I don't know if they'll do it like Switch and everything that comes after the Switch.
I think it'll hurt them if they do that. If they kibosh it, I mean.
With how popular the Switch has been, like how big their install base is for the Switch, like they'd be pretty crazy to close that store anytime in the like next 10 years even probably.
Although they shut the 3DS store, right? Like that's closing or has closed.
Yeah, they did. But again, it's like because of that self-cannibalization, right? Like the Switch is Nintendo's handheld.
That's true.
Like
Yep.
like it's not the 3DS anymore. And like Ryan always says, right? Like the best way to cannibalize your or have your product cannibalized is to have it be your own other products, right? So
yeah, you may as well be the one benefiting from taking over that market segment again.
yeah,
Or revolutionizing it. All right, well,
yeah, that's pretty much been it. What are you up to?
for me, I have been a fucking big one that we just did. We just fucking beat. I'm pretty pumped actually. We beat Remnant 2 on Apocalypse. We tried it for over the last few weeks. Like we've been playing it on weekends and stuff, and we did it on stream.
Here and there on stream a couple times. Yeah,
Tried it on stream for a couple hours, and we did the last part of Root Earth. So we beat a small section. Then we beat the second last boss really easily, actually.
yeah. I thought that one was going to be harder for sure.
Yeah, we beat it in like 4 tries, and a couple of them were just like wasn't even a fight. It was like we showed up, they fucked us over immediately, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. We just didn't dodge a move right and stuff. Yeah.
But like so, like within 4 actual fights, I guess, and we killed that guy, and then we went after the big guy, and the big guy took like 2 hours, and we didn't beat him.
I'd say an hour and a half, maybe an hour and a quarter.
Okay.
We tried a number of attempts, a lot of attempts, and we couldn't quite get it. But then we did it, yeah, just before like a couple hours ago, and it took what 5 attempts, maybe.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even that bad.
No.
It's much easier when you're not streaming, focusing on like trying to, doing stuff for content, so to speak, versus just like sitting and kind of trying to chill and realizing like, yeah, we're just going to try this until we do it, and not put too much pressure on ourselves and blah blah blah. But yeah.
Well, we
Satisfying.
were also trained up, like obviously because we did the stream. We were trained up on the last
had practice.
guy.
Yep.
We had practice. We even like slept on it and then came back to the problem with fresh minds, but a lot of the practice behind us. Also, we discovered a lot of things. So you changed up your skills. Like your dog did 20% more damage almost all the time. So that was huge. I changed up my skills because one of my skills, which was raging, was the timing was just fucked and you need perfect timing.
Yeah, more of a hindrance than a help.
Yeah, just like was not good. So we got rid of that. And then like in the 11th hour, like the second or third last try, there was fucking orbs everywhere. And I was like, fuck this. And I just pull out the Song of Ephir, I think. And I just like, boom. And it just killed like 5 of the 10 orbs or something like that. And we're like, oh my God, that's how we're killing these fucking orbs. So we both put that mod on and made sure it was always charged up. And, then that like came in huge handy for this one. And what was good about the run that we did was like we were just doing well. Like we just went in, did well. Yep. It wasn't like we were like panicking or anything. Although I did hold my breath for the last 10th of his health, like quite literally.
Yeah, I saw his health. I looked up, I saw his health bar, and I was like, nope, I'm not looking at it. I'm just gonna play the game until he doesn't move anymore, because I'm not gonna like psych myself out about this. He
got stunned near the end, and I was like, I had looked like previously, and I was like, oh my God. So I went into my auto mode. I was like, this is going to fucking kill him. And I just kept like fucking blasting him. And it didn't. But I was like, man, he's got to be close. Just
he has like a sliver. And then I ran out of ammo and I was like, oh God. And so I saw it to my sidearm and I just like peppered him down with like 30 damage a hit. And then it finally took him out. And then we were like, there we go. He fucking did it. But that's what I love about these games, man. It's like it's basically just a puzzle. It's just a matter of having the right pieces in the right place and then executing properly, and there you go. You've done it.
Yeah. It was a ton of fun, actually. We built characters for Apocalypse, got a bunch of loot. We did a whole bunch of like farming before we actually attempted Apocalypse. Then we just went in and did it. We didn't do a lot of the side stuff or anything. Like the goal here was to beat the game in Apocalypse. The goal
Just
was
to beat
not
Apocalypse, yeah.
let's go do all these puzzles while also almost dying every time we see somebody. So, so that was the big one this week. Other than that, been doing the 76, of course, doing the dailies, doing the weeklies on the grind. I'm in the last 10 levels. Yes, I know there's bonus levels, but I'm not doing them because I think they're dumb. So I'm gonna
tell me how you really feel.
So I'm just gonna get to level 100. If I get a little further, I get a little further. Been playing that. What else? X Defiant came out this week. Competitive shooter by Ubisoft. Free to play competitive shooter where you play as different factions. Like there's like a Splinter Cell faction, a Division faction, which is the cleaners, DedSec, which is hackers from Watch Dogs, and Libertad, which is the revolutionaries from Far Cry 6. So it's been pretty fun. Call of Duty, like I know people have problems with Call of Duty. I have problems with Call of Duty. Everyone does. Like it's Call of Duty. But Call of Duty has the movement, like bar none. They have the movement and they have the feel when you shoot and they have the feel when you hit somebody. Like I know I'm fucking hitting that person.
Yeah. The feedback, yeah.
The feedback is like just like with COD, bad COD, good COD, whatever. It's always, for me, that stuff is always perfect. This game is not quite there. Like I have trouble sometimes. Yes, there's hit markers and stuff, and I could tell I'm hitting them, but it just the feedback doesn't feel like I'm actually like laying into them. Yeah. But we've been playing it. It's been pretty fun. Leveling up and stuff like that. I don't give a fuck about the challenges, short of unlocking new guns. So that's all I'm doing. I don't care about the about the battle pass. This is like Overwatch for me. I could give a fuck. I'm just gonna play the game here and there, and that's it. It's free to play. The game's pretty cool though. Like there's abilities for each of the factions. So the cleaners, which are people that burn things all over the place from the division, they have like a flame drone. They have like a firebomb. The spies, the Splinter Cell people, they can go invisible. They have sort of a UAV thing. But each class has an ultimate. So the cleaners can pull out a flamethrower and just sort of go to town with a flamethrower. The spies turn into like basically Sam Fisher. You pull the glasses down, you can see everyone on the map, and you pull out his iconic pistol, like Sam Fisher's pistol, and you like shoot everybody. I never played as Libertad and have not unlocked DedSec yet. They're quite far away from me. And I don't like the ghosts. I've tried the ghosts and I'm not a shield player though, so it's like I like running around more than being like I need to put a shield here. Like by the time I determine I need to put a shield down, like I'm usually in the shit and I'm dead. So, but I played a lot of the cleaner faction because that's my favorite faction from the division. I played that and I just wasn't driving too much. Like they have a thing on them when you shoot. It's a passive ability. So a lot of these each of these factions has a passive ability as well. And their passive ability is they set fire to people with incendiary rounds, but the range is reduced. I think it's damage at range. And I was finding that like I got hit by some incendiary bullets and it only did like 4 damage or like 2 damage to me or something. And I was getting fucking dropped. Like I was laying into people with the cleaners and I just wasn't dropping them. Like the time to kill was just too long, I thought. So I switched over to the spies. Like I tried the ghosts and stuff, switched over to the spies inevitably. And that's my faction right now. Go invisible, run behind them, shoot them all in the back, run away, do that type of thing. So that's what I've been playing. Been pretty good. Big thing in this game, no skill-based matchmaking. And let me tell you, if you get in there and there's a bunch of streamers on the other fucking team, you ain't fucking winning and you ain't doing good either. You're going to get your ass beat. And let me tell you, I got my fucking ass beat in this game a whole bunch. Show up and it's like one person sees you for a second and they're conversing because 10 people come to your location. It's like, oh fuck. And like everyone's like trying to kill you. And it's chaos. I think it's actually 6v6, not 10, but no, it's
surprising. A competitive game in 2024 that doesn't have skill-based matchmaking, even like a little bit. That's pretty wild.
That's what I've heard. It's no skill-based. I think it's because people complain about skill-based in COD so much.
It's not a bad thing though. Like I don't.
So I think this is the bad thing is that, like, let's say like you and I are playing and you and I are doing good. Like we're just doing good. Like, you know, we're positive 1-2, maybe we're negative 1-2 in each round, whatever. One of us does great one round. Like
Right,
you're positive 25. It's like, oh, okay, you're playing with the pros now. That's what skill-based matchmaking does. And it will keep you at that level, and you will like go down, get beaten over and over again. Then it's like, okay, now you're way down here, and then it's easy again. And what it's trying to do is skill-based matchmaking is trying to keep you at 1.0 kill death ratio. And like, to me, I feel like it should be more of a ladder and less of a like, oh, just put them with the pros now.
Well, it depends on the game, right? Like, you usually is like a ladder where you have to work your way up through like bronze tier, silver tier, gold tier, platinum tier, onyx tier. Like, it depends on the game, right? But by and large, I think that's the way it's supposed. It makes the most sense. It's like the ladder system, where if you win, number go up, you lose, number go down, and then you just find your median point where your number just like you lose some, you win some, you lose some, you win some, you just stay in that average range.
There is a ranked mode coming to this that does do that. That has, or seemingly it does. It'll have the bronze and stuff. It's just in trial right now. This is the preseason of X Defiant. So I don't know if we're going to keep playing it till then or whatever. Like, it's pretty small, just pretty fun game. It's pretty cool seeing a lot of the division maps again. All the maps are after or based on, you know, the different Ubisoft licenses.
Yeah,
of which there's a ton of division ones because it's just like perfect, right? It's a shooter.
Yeah, yep.
But yeah, Tim, if you ever want to get into a free-to-play competitive shooter,
oh god,
X Defiant, baby.
I'm so bad with competitive games. I get too into them. I get too fired up, and then it brings out the worst version of myself.
I like doing that to myself, but because I like winning at the end.
Because you're a masochist. I like the way it burns.
I like the way it burns.
You used to drink all that horrible coffee, and you never opted to get a better coffee maker because you were like, no, coffee should hurt a little bit. And I'm like, no, it really shouldn't. It really shouldn't hurt. You should enjoy what you're drinking. It's not a crime to like your coffee. No, I need something that's as bitter as me. No, you don't really. I mean, it's fine if you want that, but you don't need it.
Wake up in the morning, just have something horrible every morning.
Going back to the topic of like people who are like, oh, you know, video games are a waste of time, and I'm bitter about it, so I need to be bitter about it forever instead of letting myself enjoy things. It's like you're allowed to like sugary drinks if you want to, you know. You're not proving anything to anybody by drinking black coffee because it makes you look tougher or whatever. Like, damn, bro forces himself to drink something he hates. That's so tough. Like,
it's like at the bar and you're like interested to drink, but you're like, what does it look like? Like, is it too like girly or something?
Is it blue? Is it a blue drink actually? I need whiskey on the rocks. I need don't put ice in it. I want literal rocks in my glass.
You got any stuff back there that's just bitter? I want a bunch of bitter shit.
I just want. Can you grab the bitters shaker that you like put in cocktails and just give me a full glass of bitters? Pretty sure my throat would close up.
Without even testing or trying it, allergy discovered for Tim. His throat close up. Help me!
Just sniff it and.
What do I do? I have this like distinct memory of like being at a bar one time and just ordering like a honey something. I forget what it was. It was like it was supposed to be like a speakeasy drink, and it came out in like this huge, you know, martini glass. Like it's very like whatever. And people were like, you're gonna drink that at the bar, and people are gonna see you. I was like, I could give a fuck,
and
man.
like yeah,
like I saw it. The ingredients looked interesting. I'm just gonna have one. I wanted to try it. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, sorry, bro. It's not a fucking like Pilsner, fucking dark ale. I don't give a shit, man. If you think it makes me less manly, that's fine. Then I guess I'm less manly. And you know what? I'm totally fine with that.
I kind of arguably more manly that I'm in the middle of a bar drinking this like very like colorful, light flavored.
Yeah, man. Based, some might say. Sigma
based.
mindset.
I don't know what that means. I've heard that before. I do not know what that means.
Sigma is just like unbothered, like you're just doing your thing. You don't care what anybody thinks about you. Just maximum confidence in what you're doing. Yeah,
and I remain that way to this day for that type of stuff. Like I could give a fuck.
Yep.
I think that's it for my week, though. Tried to pick up COD on the PSP and just didn't do it. Just did not do it. I'm so close to the end, too. I should just sit down one day and be like, that's it. These 2 hours are just like, because the next game on the PSP is a mafia strategy game, and apparently it's really good. And like, I'm probably going to really enjoy it and probably actually want to play it. But COD is just holding things up. It's a good game. I have no problem with it, but it's just, I've just kind of done it. The gameplay loop has been done, and it's just like, do it again now, but do it again now. It's like, fuck.
Do it again on a different map, and it's a little bit harder.
Use the flak gun this time. It's like, I have. I've done it.
I've seen the flat gun. Give me something new. I know this game is a flat gun. I've done it. I've used it. Please. Oh my God. Also,
like, the levels later are pretty buggy. Like, there's a few times where, like, a guy will just start running into a wall and I have to follow him and be like, follow me, Patterson. And I'm like, I can't.
You're not going anywhere.
We're going, we don't need roads or objectives.
Oh, nice.
Because it's just right into a bunker wall over and over again.
They've got us pinned down. No, it's you. You've got you pinned down. You're not moving.
But yeah, that has been my week. Care to do a Ryan impression and tell me what he's been playing this week?
Yep. So this week I've been playing Fortnite, and I've been playing I don't know. What does Ryan play? I did some Fallout 76.
Extra-Fiant.
I played a little Extra-Fiant with you, Matt, and I was bad at it, and I didn't like it, so I'm never playing it again. And
well, thank you, Ryan.
I feel like I don't play enough games with Ryan to like know what he plays and how he plays them and his like opinions of them anymore.
His Fallout 76 stuff, and like I've said this to him a million times, drives me nuts. He'll like ask me, he'll be like, Matt, do you have any like 5.56 rounds? I'm like, you have a shitload of material. Like, build the damn rounds. He's like, I can't be bothered. I'm like, but you can't shoot. It's a shooter. Build the damn rounds. Like, I go into my workshop, like, all right, that's it. Put some different cards on and come out with a fucking 30,000 rounds in about 4 minutes.
No, but he could just ask you.
No,
and then you'll give it to him. You're feeding the problem. It's your fault.
Feeding the problem.
Yeah.
I literally have an ammo chest specifically from Fallout First. I have an ammo chest, which I have a shitload of ammo in there. And wait, what?
Hashtag sponsored.
Yeah. And like, I'll just have a bunch of shit there that I don't use. I don't use 5.56, so I'll just give it to him. Ryan, if you're listening to this, make some damn ammo, buddy. But that's that's it. That concludes this episode of the Day One Patch Podcast. Tim, where can the fine folks find you during the week?
As usual, during the week, twitch.tv/the sidetrack, where we are, like I said, working our way through Paper Mario, the 1,000-Year Door remake on the Switch. It's a ton of fun. I've been really enjoying it. And yeah, once we're done that, we're going to go back to Tomb Raider. Although I did also hit a stretch goal for today for doing a Dark Souls randomizer, which I've never done. I've played Dark Souls so many goddamn times. I know that game like the back of my hand. And but I've never done a randomizer for it, so that will definitely change things up for a playthrough. And I'm kind of scared. I don't really know what kind of build to do, so we will see how that goes as we get through it. But that is on the horizon as well if you're a fan of Dark Souls. And the stretch goal beyond that will be a Dark Souls crowd control playthrough, which, if you're not familiar with the crowd control app, it's basically viewer interactivity for like built into games through a third-party app called Crowd Control, where people can choose what happens in the game while you're playing it live. So you can spawn in bosses, you can change player health or move speed, or do different things to hinder or help. So it's really an interesting interactive experience, and I am again very scared. So we will see how that goes too. But yeah, some fun things coming up soon. And but for now, Paper Mario, which is also a blast.
This feels like I guess it is kind of like a Twitch plays, right? They don't play it, but they,
in a sense, but they're affecting it, right? So I think a lot of what happens for crowd controls is people like, it's usually a game that they're pretty good at, and then they have crowd control there to like make the game as hard as possible for them. Like, I haven't looked through the things that are possible with the Dark Souls specific one, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's like, refill a boss's health bar or something. Like, you've almost got a boss down to like, 10%, and then it just goes right back up to 100, and you're like, oh my god, I gotta do it all again.
I have to do that again.
Yeah, it's like a damn Samaflange. But yeah, so that's lots of fun things coming up. I'm excited for.
Sweet. And you can find us on the Wednesday evenings. We just finished Remnant, We are in the middle. Well, actually, a little past the middle of Halo 3 ODST. Hopefully, we'll finish that next week.
Probably, yeah.
That's
man, 2 hours or so. But yeah,
that's a big old check off my list too.
I'm glad you haven't played it before because that's a really it's a game that I've only played through I think twice. And it's really I forgot how fun the Halo games are to just go back to with a couple of friends, just blast through the campaign, do a bunch of cool blowing up shit and have vehicle, sections and fight aliens and get stupid quipping Marines along with you the whole time. That one clip of the guy who's like, I'm a killing machine. And then I shot him in the head with a grenade launcher and he's like, why are you killing me? Oh God, I was fucking dying. Oh, so good.
That one guy was so fired up to kill things in the passenger seat of that Warthog. Everyone was dead. And he's just take me somewhere to kill or something.
We're trying to find where the enemies are, and he's like, that's it. I'm ready. Let's go. And we're like, there's nobody around, dude.
Pipe down, man. Come on.
I only have 2 lines of dialogue. Woo! Those games are goofy. I love how unserious those games take themselves. It's so good.
I have a very vivid memory of we're in high school and Halo 3 came out and I played games, but I didn't track them. And so many people asked me did you get it? And I'm like, get what? And they're like, Halo 3, it came out today. And they were so into it. Some people took the day off and everything to play it.
Yeah,
I was
Halo Fever was wild. The hype was unprecedented.
It was crazy. Everyone was asking me did you get it? Did you get it? I'm surprised you wouldn't get that. I'm like, fuck, I don't know.
I don't know what Halo is. Leave me alone.
I don't play that. Leave me be. And my Xbox 360 friends list, I was the only one ever for months not
playing Halo 3. Yeah. I played a lot of Halo and Halo 2 with my brother and my friends growing up and stuff. So I remember hearing that Halo 3 was coming out and being so devastated that it wasn't for the original Xbox, that it was for the 360, because we didn't get consoles growing up. A console was a big gift and it had to be a thing that was for Christmas and it was for both me and my brother kind of thing. So we had to wait until the next year, I think. I think Halo 3 came out in 2006. I think we had to wait until Christmas 2007 till I got Halo 3. And but people were still playing it. The hype was still real. So it was, at least I could go to my friends' places and mooch off of them in their 360s to play Halo.
Well, considering apparently everybody had it, what a crazy era.
Yeah.
Even people who you never saw play games again. I have people on my friends list where I'm like, oh my God, this person's from high school. Go look. They last signed in grade 11 and they're playing fucking Halo.
I was gonna say last seen 15 years ago and they were playing Halo 3.
It's or it'll be Halo and then on their whole profile it'll be Halo, maybe a COD. And then NBA or a sport game, and that's it. And it's just been Halo. They have all the achievements and everything. Everything else is just sort of they played it for an hour, and that was it.
Yep. Good times.
But yeah, you can find us playing some Halo at twitch.tv/day1patchmedia, and that's it. We're signing off.
For listening.
I thought you said peace for listening for a second.
I would never say that. That's ridiculous.
Peace.